Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the AI Translation Trade-off, How to Avoid Sacrificing Quality for Speed. I'm Sarah Bassi, the Product Director at XTM International, and I'm delighted to have you all here for this great discussion on a topic that, as we all know, is really shaping the future of global communication. As companies around the world turn more and more into AI solutions for localization, we're really starting to witness incredible gains in speed and efficiency. But along with these advancements come also important challenges, and namely, how do we ensure that we are not sacrificing quality, brand integrity, and compliance while we also look for faster results? Today, we're joined by three industry leaders and experts who will share their insights on navigating these challenges. We'll dive into how innovations like Agentic AI are not just about automating tasks, but also about enhancing decision-making and quality assurance in real time. Our panel today will explore critical topics such as how to leverage new AI technologies to enhance quality and decision-making processes, maintaining a consistent brand voice across different cultures and markets while staying compliant with regulations, and last but not least, also adapting our review processes to keep pace with AI without overwhelming post-editing demands. Our goal today is really to provide you with strategic approaches to fully harness AI's potential, while at the same time also keeping your global content authentic and aligned with your brand values. But now let me introduce our guest speakers. First, I'd like to welcome Jurek Krzyzewski, co-founder at CJ International. He's an expert in AI technology implementation in international companies of all sizes. Hi, Jurek.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Hi. And I'd also like to welcome Bruno Herrmann, Global Consultant and Vice Chairman at LT Innovate. He's known for advocating innovative localization strategies across diverse markets. Thank you for being here, Bruno.
Thank you, Sarah. Good to be here.
And last but not least, our very own Sarah De Domenici, Customer Success Team Lead, who brings a wealth of insights from the business. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone. So we're really thrilled to have such a great panel with us today, and thank you all for joining. So I would say let's get started. Today's sessions is how to avoid sacrificing quality for speed. And I wonder if we can first frame the conversation around the concept of quality. With the latest advancements in Gen AI, I really wonder if we are being maybe challenged, reconsidering the concept of quality and maybe rethinking it more outside of the box. So what's your view on this, Jurek?
Yeah, very good question, Sarah. And I have quite a strong opinion on this. I think that quality from a localization, from a business perspective, shouldn't be centered around, checking dots and commas. I think the real definition, the real point of quality in localization is how well does your multilingual content perform? What are the results that you can generate because of your multilingual content? And I always give the same example. So if there are people in the room who have seen me before, they will probably recognize this example. But the example is the following. A company has a website, 30% of that website is high traffic content, 70% of that website is low traffic content. Well, if you manage to close more deals because that 30% high traffic content of your website is a human piece of art delivered by a human linguist, that is the real definition of quality. But on the other hand, if you manage to attract more people in Australia or New Zealand or Japan or wherever, and if you manage to keep them longer on your website because that 70% of your website is a quick and dirty machine translation, well, in a way, that is also quality. Not from a linguistic perspective, I agree, but from a business perspective, this is the exact same level of quality. And I think this is very important to understand. I think we need to understand this if we, as an industry, want to move away from our obsolete ways of checking quality. I also have a strong opinion on that. I think we need to understand that if we want to stop using quality metrics or metrics that are not really intended for quality measurements. The best example here is the Bleu score. For machine translation, the Bleu score is not intended to measure quality, people. I think that's what we need to understand if you want to come up with better compensation models for our linguists, also a very hot topic in our industry, of course. And I also think that's what we need to understand if you want to allocate our budgets and our resources more efficiently when managing and organizing translation projects.
Thank you, Yurik. I honestly really like this more of an outcome-based approach, if you may. Also in products, in a more broader perspective, we like to talk more about outcome and not outputs. So I think this is really going into a very similar direction. So I also wonder, maybe a question for you, Bruno. I wonder how you see this and how should enterprises around the world then actually measure the outcome of good AI implementation?
Yeah, I agree with Yurik. This is a very important question. And just to start, I would like to say that I stopped using the word quality many years ago, not just because of subjective views from different people, but also to make quality as a concept more business oriented, more value driven. Effectiveness is the word that I'm using now. Effectiveness, because from my perspective, and I see that every day in client organizations I work with, content, any type of content has a job to do. When you translate, you localize a website in 25 languages, you have in this website or in this platform, you have a number of different types of content. There is training content potentially, and the job of that content is to train people. Then there is product content, which is of course designed to sell the product. And so, effectiveness for me is value. It is value for the organizations actually managing multilingual content and products, but it's also value for the clients of these organizations. So in terms of customer experience, so I think effectiveness means different things to different people, and I think that's good. I also agree that there is no one sort of model of effectiveness. Speed is, of course, potentially part of the effectiveness when content is delivered more quickly. But I think effectiveness goes way beyond that. It goes to accuracy, it goes to compliance. Effectiveness is compliance for regulated industries, which might be very different from non-regulated industries. And I think speed sometimes has a very difficult role in effectiveness measurement, or quality, if you want to continue using quality. Is that many people are rushing now. I can see that also quite often. Many people are rushing just to use speed, or to be obsessed with speed as a key driver for AI implementation and adoption. And I think it's much broader than that. So there must be more value than just speed. Speed might just be one component of that. And the reason why I said that speed has sometimes a very, I would say, surprising role is that it pushes some people just to deploy AI without actually being ready for it. When I say ready, I mean the people being ready to use it properly, not just to play with AI, but also actually, in terms of language data, for instance, or model training. There are a number of things that are probably not done properly, or not done at all sometimes. And of course, this is because there is an obsession with speed. So I think speed must be definitely put in perspective with value and, in my terminology, effectiveness.
Thank you, Bruno. You also, I think you used a very interesting word, this rushing, right? So I think we are all experiencing this rush across companies, really. People involved in localization are being challenged, mainly from the top, right, to implement AI-driven or GenAI-driven localization workflows as soon as possible, right? And I think also thinking about this big hype that we experienced in 2023 and also 2024, all the enthusiasm around GenAI has sometimes led to the impression that a simple LLM implementation would suddenly solve all possible business challenges. So as you said, sometimes companies are not ready, right? So Sarah, I wonder what are your thoughts on this based on your actual experience with customers, right? So how do you see this?
Yeah, so I work on the CS team at XTM, so we hear this all the time from customers, even before the last couple of years in the news around AI and the developments we're seeing, the speed and quality have been at the heart always of problem solving and localization. So I think the important thing to bear in mind is that not all AI is equal, and really it's about how you're applying the solutions that are available, what your needs are in your kind of transition workflow. I see more and more customers questioning what new features will actually do for them practically, and an interest in testing and trying things out really before rushing. I think we've got to that point where people are evaluating more. At least I've definitely seen that in conversations with my customers. I have customers actually participating in some control betas for functionality that we're rolling out, and we're focusing their AI-powered quality functionality that we're focusing on their feedback to try and roll that into releases that come through later this year, so that we can kind of look towards a more, I guess, consistent quality, trustworthy, responsible solution, rather than kind of just a quick fix that actually creates more problems than it fixes.
Indeed. So again, more of an outcome-based approach, right? So also across our customers that are really interested in a real value, right? So as I understand the importance of defining good processes around the implementation of AI, especially LLM-driven processes, I'm curious to hear from you, Bruno, again, in terms of practical implementation you may have witnessed across so many different industries. I'm especially curious about more regulated industries where compliance is really a must. So how do you see successful companies in this industry, specifically managing expectations around speed and quality?
Yeah, and that's a big challenge, I have to say, in regulated industries. So I'm working mostly now with the life science industry, so pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biotechnology. So I think, there is a real contrast in terms of workflow and in terms of also in terms of requirements between those industries driven by regulation, compliance, and a number of specific, more or less specific requirements that are part of each industry. Whether, if you are in the European Union, you have some directives. If you are in the States, you have the FDA that you have to delight in a way. So I think that just to show the contrast, I think what I can say about the workflows in regulated industries is that, of course, it has to be accurate. So there are a number of criteria, if you will, requirements that are not so specific to the regulated industries. But then you have indeed the whole package, as I call it, the whole package of requirements which are related to regulations and compliance. And you have to integrate that in the workflows that you have to manage for your multilingual content and services. So I think that then there is a huge focus on delivering, or I would say combining speed, quality, and cost, obviously. But there is a real focus on making sure that, for instance, the requirements that are described in what is called the SOP, so the standard operating procedures, you have to integrate those requirements in the workflow to make sure that you are in sync with those operational requirements. It sounds quite natural or easy, but it's not, just because, of course, between what you put in an operational procedure and what you have to build as a workflow, there is there is a lot of work, first of all, and this requires several types of roles and responsibilities. So I think that this is where regulated industries have to put a real focus on a number of steps, a number of activities in the workflows that are so critical. And of course, as a contrast to that, because I have also a couple of clients that are not in regulated industries, when you talk about brands, then of course it's about enriching, about augmenting AI-driven now in many workflows, about augmenting AI-driven and AI-generated content to make it very authentic, very unique, very engaging, humanly engaging. And I think that is, of course, very critical, because, of course, the purpose of the content is brand management, and is actually to engage people, to keep people engaged. And on the other hand, with regulated industries, It's actually to delight and to meet the requirements of regulated or regulations authorities. So you see, each workflow has to really reflect the needs and the requirements that are more or less specific to these industries. And that's why I think what is really exciting is really to build workflows for different organizations, different companies, but always in synchronization with the requirements. And for that matter, you're right, Sarah, the regulated industries are potentially more challenging, in my experience at least. Cannot speak for everybody, but I think it's definitely something that AI generated content is posing some challenges for. But yeah, I stop here for that perspective.
Thank you, Bruno. That's also something that we anticipated, right, in our January webinar about predictions. So there already we kind of touched a bit upon this challenge. Again, so quality is a hard requirement. It's not nice to have in many industries. And I understand there must be really documented ways of proving that a quality or review step has taken place with specific results, right? So then I wonder, Eric, in the current landscape, right? So if we could think of any maybe innovative ways of managing quality through LLMs, which would still be compliant, but just manage it in a different way, which is not the conventional process of a human review. So any approaches you would suggest?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception where people think that AI is here to translate our content and write our content, which are very good use cases, but it's not limited to that. And I truly believe that we should deploy AI and LLMs for quality checking procedures. And I will tell you why. We have two quality disciplines in our industry. Two examples: QA in our TMSs, the traditional QA, and LQA done by humans. And there are problems with both disciplines. Let's start with QA. First of all, it's rule-based, meaning it's just checking whether, if there's a dot in the source, there must also be a dot in the target. If not, error. That's not what we need in the current AI climate. Furthermore, it generates tons of false positives, and humans really need to fight their way through those false positives. It's not context aware, and in terms of customization, it's pretty limited. So that's not okay. That's not what we need. Then we have LQA. LQA is a fully human process, and that's of course not the problem. But human process means time consuming, and human processes are not perfect either. Humans can have a bad day as well, and humans can make bad judgments as well about certain translations. And I think we can do better. I heard someone say the other day that LLMs are better at evaluating content than generating content. I don't know if that's true. I'm not going to make any judgment here either, but we should not take that kind of statement for granted. So I'm experimenting with this myself a lot. And the nice thing is, when you deploy an LLM for quality checking procedures, you can really talk to your model and you can define what quality is, and you can pass that definition of quality onto your model, and you can define the error criteria yourself, and you can give examples, and you can provide context when something is a real error and when something is not a real error. On top of that, you can define the output. Maybe you just want a quality report, right? A description of quality or a description of your errors, or maybe you want a quality score, or maybe you want a pass-fail indication, or maybe you want an automated correction, or maybe you want a combination of different outputs. And all of that is technically perfectly possible with LLMs. And of course, I do realize that I'm making it sound very nice and beautiful and positive now. Circling back to Bruno's comment, people should not rush into this. It's not because you ask two questions to ChatGPT and you get two decent answers that you're ready to migrate your entire quality procedure to an LLM. But from a technical point of view, I think there are many, many opportunities for us as an industry to do our quality checking procedures better than we are currently doing.
Thank you, Eric, and a very interesting approach. So again, starting to think a bit more outside of the box, right? And starting to also challenge our own ways of managing processes around quality, right? So then I wonder, now let's check from a customer perspective, right, Sarah? So I wonder, how do you think customers might welcome such an approach? managing quality through LLMs, or how do you think in general they would manage its effectiveness?
I think it goes back again to how trustworthy the results consistently are. And that really is about being able to understand where that information is coming from. It's picking up on what Yurik said. You can't just ask 2 questions and expect to have everything resolved and be able to trust what that answer is. And so it's really about how you use it, how careful you're being about cross-checking, and doing that not just with one project or a couple of segments, but consistently over large volumes, so that you're always getting the right level, and really just using that as a tool rather than a be-all and end-all answer to, let's say, a quality assessment.
Nice, thank you. And you said it right. So it's not just about very limited content. So it's about also making sure that the process is scalable across, many content types, a lot of content, a lot of files, a lot of languages, right? So it's also about making sure that the consistency of the process is guaranteed, right? So as we again talk about processes, right, and we are trying to at least find a way to make AI be more of a proactive actor in our localization workflows. So I wonder, Bruno, maybe a question for you. So what governance models should organizations put in place to really ensure more transparency and accountability and even risk management around AI localization?
Sure. Well, of course, there is a need now more than ever to establish, robust governance to make AI or generative AI responsible, transparent, and of course value driven, as I said before. But having said that, I think there are a few components that are really necessary to build and to maintain this governance. And the first one is how to infuse generative AI in content management in general and in localization management in particular. I think that I've seen for the past 18 months, I've seen quite a number, I couldn't say how many, but I've seen quite a number of projects that have failed or that have been disappointing, sorry, for one reason. It was because organizations, they didn't have any governance, but even worse than that, they didn't have what it took to establish that governance from the beginning, from the outset. What I mean here is that these organizations didn't have any good or any reliable data management strategy. And there is no AI without data. I think it's still shocking for some people today, but when I'm discussing some projects or some roadmaps, I pay a lot of attention to data, language data for, of course, content, but of course data in general, the role of data and how data is created, how data is acquired. And I think that this is a pain point for many people. I realize that because there are companies don't have this data management in place. And of course, because of that, it's difficult to talk about governance when there is at least one major component missing. And I think, when I say that everything starts with data, it's also because I think that there is another misconception in generative AI-driven projects now, which is that many people believe that human supervision, which I call human in the center, human supervision is not limited to enriching or checking, AI-driven, so AI-generated content. Human supervision starts at the data level, at the data management phase, because of course you need to make sure that data is curated, it's segmented, it is checked properly, and for that you need human supervision. You need the same sort of human supervision when it comes to prompt engineering. You cannot just say, yeah, I'm going to put a few words, a few sentences. No, every word, every structure matter in terms of prompt. So human supervision is really critical, across the whole supply chain, if I can use that term, when data is created or acquired until when content is AI generated. And I think, when you don't have that, so data management, when you don't have correct human supervision with the role and responsibilities, if you are missing those two components, I believe, that's my opinion, that it's quite difficult to have a proper governance in place. I think the governance will just be like an empty box. It will be a nice word, but nothing in it. So that's my perspective on it.
Thank you, Bruno. And I saw, Ulrich, you were kind of agreeing, right? Silently. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, I think I have only one answer to this question. There is still, and there will probably always be a need for humans in the loop, humans in the process. So I just gave this very fancy example of using AI for quality checking procedures. That's nice, but in the end, you still need a human to sign off the results that were produced by that AI model. But if you manage to save yourself a couple of hours in the process by doing this combination of AI checking plus human sign off, that is a very good example of an AI implementation. It's also measurable to a certain extent. You know, time gains are perfectly measurable, and I think like the big conclusion for me here is that speed and quality, it's not a dilemma. You know, both can perfectly coexist in localization workflows, and you can put them in some kind of balance. But depending on the use case, you know, speed will be a little bit heavier than quality and vice versa. Circling back to the example of my website, if you spend a lot of time and money on that human piece of art, you know, that 30% high traffic content, that is fine because it's compensated by that 70% of low traffic content that was processed by a machine. So it's not a matter of, you know, black or white, or it's really a matter of coexistence of both assets in our processes, in our workflows.
Thanks, Ulrich. So really, it's kind of trying and force us to look at this more holistically, right? And really also elevating the role of the human in the loop, if you may, right? So just to strategically orchestrate the entire process. It's not just being one of the many actors, right? So also, I think, Sarah, how do you see actually companies, working? Is this a sort of, process or, you know, approach that you see might be working?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a concern. Governance is quite scary, and I think we're waking up to it more and more. It's always been around. I think the need to meet certain standards is sort of integral to localization. And of course, now things are changing. So we get more and more questions, more and more interest in going back to Bruno's point on, what we're using, what data we're using, how it's being used. It's clearly a concern. I think people are looking really at how they actually have AI employed in their workflow. It's been around, certainly in XTM, it's been around for years, but of course it's used in different ways and things are changing. So there's this constant need to keep up and reevaluate the processes in place just to control that.
And again, it's like having really a deja vu, really, because it really reminds me of so many things that we're anticipating in our January prediction webinar. So I see really how these things are coming true, right? We're a couple of months already into the year. And I wonder also looking at the future now. So what question really for the entire group here, what's the biggest opportunity you see in AI moving from more of a passive, actor in terms of automation to more of a proactive advisory role, and especially as we often highlight the importance of the human in the loop, right, or driving that loop now. So what role do you see the human expertise playing along a more agentic AI system? So how do you see this technology evolving in the localization space over the next few months or even years? Maybe let's start from Bruno.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I would just to keep it short and just to circle back on the theme of speed, which we are dealing with today. I think that the how to say that the role or the value of AI agents should really, in my opinion, my experience, should be really in the acceleration of some workflows. Because of course now when you build a localization process or a content management process, and when you actually build the team around it, you already have the human resources and the agentic resources. That's very interesting. I've seen that twice over the past weeks, for organizations, shaping their teams. So I think that's, of course, where AI agents will play a key role, which will be about accelerating, everything that can be accelerated to perform tasks faster. That's, of course, the goal dream of many stakeholders. Well, some examples could be, well, from my perspective, source content analysis when it comes to sensitive areas, or consistency checks. Also, light reduction. That's what I see in regulated industries. When you have to redact some content, obviously you can use for light, what I call light reduction. You can use agents that will speed up the process. And also, agents will play a role, as far as I can see, after translation, to measure quality or measure effectiveness according to KPIs, or again, in regulated industries, to de-anonymize content. More generally, I think that agents will be additional components, more than replacing components of localization management. And I see that also for global content management. So it's not just related, not just specific to the localization industry. I think it's for all people involved in content management. But again, to make the most of these agents, again, I think there will be a need and a requirement, even more than a need, a requirement to make sure that agents are orchestrated by humans. It's really, I use the word orchestrated. I could use organized, but I see agents in processes and in teams now as a real, a sort of digital team member. And so it's a bit like an orchestra. When someone has to make sure that the orchestra is playing right. So that's how I see the value coming up in a number of workflows. And last but not least, I think human supervision, as I said before, is needed across across workflows, across supply chains, from creation to delivery, because I think it's also a guarantee to keep the use of agents smart. And when I say smart, I'm using the famous acronym, so specific, measurable, etc. So I think that's for me a guarantee to, at least in the beginning, in the near future, to make sure that agents are used in a value-driven and inclusive way.
Thank you, Bruno. So again, it's really about the human, again, that could make or break the success of the entire implementation, also for agentic AI, right? And Yurik, so I wonder what's your take on this? Maybe again, an additional, opportunity for us to kind of challenge traditional processes also with agentic AI.
Yeah, challenging traditional processes is maybe not the appropriate description. I would say make our current processes more sophisticated. I think that's something we can definitely do. I always say that with LLMs, every idea is a potential use case if you have, the appropriate strategy and the appropriate data to build it out. But what could that mean for our workflows? I definitely see a place for source content optimization. I see a place for content classification. Suitable for machine translation, yes, no. High risk, yes, no. Those are decisions that an AI agent can take to a certain extent. I see opportunities for content routing, very granular content routing. This translation goes live immediately. This one goes to post editing. This one goes to subject matter expert review. Yes, I see opportunities there. I see opportunities for content repurposing. Dear model, take our latest blog post and our release notes and turn it into a LinkedIn post. Yes, those are opportunities. I'm not saying that everything is going to happen. I'm not saying that everything is going to break through or become an off-the-shelf technology. But yes, I do see opportunities there. I do want to add to this that there's one thing that I really, really believe in. It's the concept of the agentic workflow. And let me specify this a little bit more. So we are in the localization industry very used to task-specific technologies. Take, for example, machine translation. Something goes in, something goes out, comes out, and you have to live with it. And there's not a lot that you can do if you're not satisfied with the result. I think we can really uplift those processes by turning that very static machine translation process into an agentic workflow that consists of different LLM iterations, and every LLM iteration has a very specific goal, a very specific purpose. Let me give you one example. Instead of doing this traditional machine translation, you can say, okay, we take our source content and we translate it using neural machine translation. And now we have a first agent who takes that baseline translation, validates the terminology, and implements corrections if necessary. Then we have another agent who does brand compliance. Is everything compliant with the brand, with our brand? Then you can have another agent who does a check on all kinds of legal requirements, for example. And then you can have a quality agent who oversees everything and says whether the translation is good, yes or no. So again, we have very static processes. Something goes in, something comes out. I think we can make that a lot more sophisticated, and I think we can improve the raw quality of, for example, what we are used to in machine translation.
It sounds almost like the sky's the limit, right? So it's really
Almost, yeah.
a lot of opportunities. So then maybe final question for you, Sarah. So after all of this, right? So maybe you already seen some of your customers implementing, similar AI, agentic AI solution approaches. So how do you see these being perceived or even adopted?
I've definitely seen an interest. We're working on something here at XTM, and we've been able to demo that with some select customers, and we've been sort of overwhelmed by the response because people are very excited about it. And I see it as an opportunity, again, to be and to stop sweating the small kind of everyday time-consuming decisions that, let's say, our project managers make wherever they might be sitting, whether it's on the services side or for one of the big organizations running their translation workflow, and to really lean into their own expertise. So it's sort of a tool for time saving. And yeah, we have lots of people asking about it, and I think we're looking forward to seeing how people will implement it in their workflows now.
Thank you, Sarah. So before taking the time to address some of our Q&A, I wanted to just mention to the audience here on the webinar that we are about to launch a poll. This is just for us, so we don't need to interrupt the webinar. So we can start addressing some of the questions while you have a chance to answer our questions. So I see actually a comment in the Q&A from Isabel, which is quite interesting. So I would even turn it into a question. So the comment says, one of the difficulties is that even if you know all the pieces that must come together, you still need engineers to connect all the systems and APIs and help train a custom model for AutoML, for example. Knowing where and how to start is the biggest challenge if you don't have a budget for LangOps consultants. So maybe not sure, just unmute yourself, anyone in the group. Maybe is there a way to maybe give Isabel or people like her maybe some, inspiration or points how to get started, right?
Well, first of all, I can definitely confirm what Isabel says. Again, we're making it sound also nice and positive and beautiful, but this new technology also comes with the need for new processes, new tooling, and of course, new skills. The technology market also looks a lot different than it looked, a couple of years ago. Now there's this very big open source community where you have all kinds of open source models, LLMs, embedding models, you name it, and you need to make sense out of that. And I know that that is a true challenge. I think the one piece of advice that I want to give here is that engineering skills are now more important than ever. So if there's room for additional engineering expertise within your organization, within your company, don't hesitate. Please invest in engineering skills.
Yeah, what I
Bruno,
can
yeah.
I can add one layer to that, which is from an operational perspective, I could certainly give one recommendation, which is to approach the work to be done to build the roadmap from three perspectives: awareness, readiness, and effectiveness. Because I think that many organizations, they look immediately at effectiveness and they forget to spend enough time and money in making people, tools, and ecosystems aware and ready for it. So I think I agree with Yorick, there is a need to upskill people. I think generative AI, generally speaking, requires new tool sets, new skill sets, and new mindsets. So it's really the combination of people and processes and technology, but always do it in that order. So first, make sure that everyone is aware of what generative AI is and is not. Make people and the organization ready, technology-wise and from a human perspective, and then you will deliver effectiveness.
Thank you, Bruno. So maybe I do take a final question because it kind of is a perfect segue into what you just said, Bruno. So the next question from Marta is, so what cultural or organizational shifts are necessary for enterprises to successfully adopt AI, especially when trying to maintain localization quality and brand integrity? So it's more of a mindset shift, right? So maybe even based on your experience. So what are the potential approaches you're suggesting?
Yeah, it's definitely a cultural shift. I don't disagree with that. I think that there is, I mean, new mindsets and new skill sets go together because, of course, some people might not have the right mindset now to, leverage generative AI, but if they are skilled, if they are trained to do so, the mindset hopefully will follow. So it's a cultural thing, but also there is this sort of transition that I see in some organizations between current roles and responsibilities. And I can give an example which is really relevant for the language industry. There are people who are internal translators now, and they are moving to another role since their organization is implementing generative AI. They are moving to a role which is language expert. So from translator to language expert, and the people I've seen in these new roles, they have a more extended role. So culturally, they have extended their scope. They are now involved in data management to make sure that language data is properly managed. So that's an example of cultural shift for people, for language professionals. And I believe strongly in that language expertise can be really the cultural shift that many language professionals would like to benefit from.
Thank you, Bruno.
Yeah,
Yurick?
absolutely. That is so true. I think we need to understand and accept that the role of certain positions in our industry is going to change. The translator who translates from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, it will still happen, but there will be other tasks that linguists will have to do. And linguists also have a very important role in, for example, prompt engineering, because an LLM expects one thing: instructions, right? It doesn't want reference materials or things that it needs to make some kind of sense of. No, a model wants you to tell what it has to do. Please do this, but never do that. And there's no one in our industry better positioned to understand, follow, and write instructions. So that's something else that we need to understand and accept and embrace.
Thank you so much. And I see also some people in the chat or in the Q&A asking for more information about some of the products that Sarah was mentioned before. So I think we will take it offline and be happy to just elaborate more on the offering that we are about to launch soon. I would say, as we are almost running out of time, we will take all the other questions offline, no worries. And I just wanted to say again, thank you so much to all the speakers that joined us today. Thank you for all of your great insights and also for the great questions from the audience. I think it was really an engaging conversation. I saw lots of reactions like right now. Thank you so much, everyone. And don't forget, we are at Lockwood in a couple of weeks, so June 3rd, 5th in Malmö. So if you're there, make sure to stop by and say hi or just learn more about XTM and what's coming. So again, thank you so much, everyone, and wish you a great rest of your day.